is Andre Dyson with Studio 270 Digital Media Lab, and right now we're going to get into the vinyl to USB conversion process. I have here with me Kenny G Dual Tones. We're going to use this vinyl, as you can see, on our USB record player that's connected to my laptop. And right now we're going to get into sampling vinyl, the do's and don'ts of taking care of the vinyl. So we'll get down into the hip hop production of the whole process, and we'll hopefully show you guys A to Z USB vinyl recording. Okay, so now we're going to take out the vinyl. And now we have our vinyl. As you can see, sometimes vinyl gets a little bit dusty. I do have a cleaning product to put on it. Right now I'll just set it on the USB player. I'm sorry, the vinyl player. And right now I have some professional anti-static record cleaner fluid. And I also have a felt cleaning utensil. Pretty much all you do is place the record cleaner in a straight line across. You could use some type of felt cloth, something that doesn't have a lot of lint, that wouldn't leave lint on the record. But I'm going to go in the circular motion across the record. And you can't just use water because it needs to dry. So this cleaner, but I'm sure this is just a solution that dries a little bit quicker than water. And I'll start with side one first, but we're going to clean both sides because we will flip it over and continue recording. I'll show you how to set it up and start recording into LogixPro X. So after we're done cleaning, we'll let it kind of dry a little bit. The biggest thing to worry about with records, depending on where you've stored them, if you do have stored it for a while, or if you're picking them out of the record store, if this is your first time going to a record store and you've never selected vinyl before, they do have cheaper vinyl that's probably older, a little bit in worse shape, and a lot of the newer, more higher quality condition vinyl is a little bit more expensive. If you really care about having that good quality vinyl, it is always important to invest in the better vinyl. But if you're on a budget and you have to dig through crates that are a little bit old, you might want to invest in a cleaning solution, because they are going to be in worse condition, and you kind of want to look at the vinyl from a side point of view and make sure there isn't any warping, because if a vinyl is warped, then it won't transfer to digital well, and this minimizes the fluid, minimizes the static as well. So it's getting all of that dirt and that grime out of the grooves, and you may have to go over it a couple times, but right now we'll just leave it as is. It doesn't look too bad. So right now we'll put the vinyl on. This is side one, and if you never played a vinyl before, side one, it'll tell you what side it is. It'll tell you the RPM, what's the best. It says 33 and a third RPM. I have options on this USB player for 33, 45, or 78. I'll leave it on 33 since that's the size of the vinyl. And it tells you the artist, the album name, and it goes through the song list on this side. On side one, there's 5 songs, and usually the vinyl, the first song is the outermost ring, and you'll see each ring go around, and those are each of the songs. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rings, and there are 5 songs. So now I'm in Logic, and I'll arm the record button, and I'll make sure in my Logic preferences that on the audio, the output device is my mixer, and it's going to come out, that's connected to my monitors, and you have to select whatever interface you're using, and I'm using my mixer. This is the name of my mixer. That's what you want the output to be out. That's what you want out, coming out of the monitors. And what's going into the software is the USB PNP USB player, US vinyl recorder. So this is that device. You have to make sure you always have the right device selected. So the right thing is playing or you don't hear anything when you try to press record. So now that I have record armed, I won't be able to hear it unless this input monitoring button is selected. I'll select that so I hear it coming out of my monitors, and we'll make sure this is on. I'll unclip the needle. I'll record. I'll start recording before I play the vinyl, and I can take away all of the dead space in the beginning. You just want it to be rolling record when you play the vinyl. And it starts moving, and I'll place the needle right before that first song on the outermost ridge. And as you can see, it's recording. I do not own the rights to this album or this record, but for the educational purposes of this video, we'll just show you how to record the audio in. And all this is real time, and you have to understand that it's not just for sampling. You can also keep your records in digital format. So if you want to clean out your basement and you've had these old records, but hey, they're your grandfather's records and you want to keep them for memory's sake. Say your grandfather has moved on, your grandmother has moved on, she has this record crate in the basement. This is a great way to hold on to those songs and keep them in digital format. This is the conversion process, all it is. But also many producers, hip hop producers especially, use this process of converting that analog music into digital format where they can then sample them and use them for their own artistic purposes. So through this part of the video, I'll fast forward and we'll pretty much get into the software, and through the miracle of time, I'll fast forward, and by the end of this segment, the whole album will be recorded in the Logic Pro. Hey guys, this is Andre again. So now with the miracle of time, we're into Logic Pro X. And now we have our vinyl recorded side 1 and 2. As you can see, Kenny G dual tones side 1, Kenny G dual tones side 2. And I initially recorded this in line, kept it recording, stopped, flipped it, and then got rid of that dead space in between. And all I did was separate it, created a, different track with a Command D option, but if you can hear, that is the static noise. Some people have sampled that and used that for different projects, just the static noise of a record. But again, so in between you can see each chop of each song. So you see where the song ends and then it dies down and then the next song starts. So it's easy to zoom in and separate each song, and you can like label each song with each track. So I could like call this, what was the first song? It's called Midnight Motion. So if I could do that, so instead of the full album, I can say Kenny G Midnight Motion, right? So that's the first song. So let's go to the first song, and right there is where right there is where the song ends. And we'll wait till that fully ends and then we'll cut it. Like right there, right? And then I'll do a Command T slices in Logic. And I could keep it as a full album. And since this is both sides of the album, I'll say full album as opposed to side 1. So you can keep it on a track as a full album, and then or you could separate it to different songs, right? So this is the first song. I'll option click and then drag down there, and I'll change the color. That's how I double click, and then it's an option to color regions by track. So you go over to the color over here. I double click down, and then I say assign track color, and all that color grade pops up. I could change the colors if I wanted to, but I'll keep it red. Let's move it. There you go. So it's red, and then you would change the color of the track. So now I could slice up each song and have them separate, right? So Command T, I'll create another track for it. I'll Option click down, and then I'll drag it down to this one. So what is the second song called? Don't Make Me Wait for Love. Get rid of that. And now the second song is labeled. Scoot it over so you can read the full titles. So, and I want it to be red just like the other one. We'll do color regions by track, right? So you would do the same thing on and on for each song and repeat, right? So that's the aspect of getting songs separated and being able to accurately digitize your music, because you want it to be true to the artist. You want it to be the correct spelling of the artist and the name of the song, and you could just have it in full album format. I've seen people upload these records to YouTube, each song individually, with all of the sub information, like what record company released the title, or they release full albums of albums, you know. So you could do this for without, you know, owning the credits, but, you know, obviously the YouTube video won't be monetized. So just something that this is how people translate these records to YouTube and to the digital world. So now that we got the concept of renaming the files once they're recorded in, let's move on to the sampling process. Okay, so now this is the beat making process. Right now I have Splice, which is a subscription-based site for producers that allows you to download drum kits like kicks, snares, hi-hats, all of those single hits samples. And you can also organize, and it saves to your computer drive. And once you have to download in order to get the app, but it is a website that you can go to. Like if I go to the app and then I go to my name at the bottom over by settings, and then it pulls me to the website. Well, this is my plugin, or this is my page that I created, my profile, and I can go to, you know, you can release songs and stuff like that, but also you can go to the sounds portion of the website, and you can select through hundreds, probably at this point thousands of drum kit sounds from different artists all over the world. And you can, sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming to choose, but if you have an idea in mind, you can go to your instruments. They have all of the selections for you, labeled as to what they are. Say I'm looking for snares. Snares is a very important instrument when it comes to beat making, to have the right snare sound to your sample, specific to your sample. But as you can see, there are so many choices. There's so many styles to choose from. But you can audition each sound. So like if I play this first one, it shows me the pack that it's from, and then it says that it's a one shot. It's underneath the category of drums, snares, hip hop, trap, and then you can also show familiar. You can favorite it and download it. So I've downloaded this before, and when you've downloaded something, it has the check mark by it. There's credits in the top corner. You can upgrade it to be able to have more credits, but even with the lowest profile, which is this is my sample credit plan, $8 a month. It's worth it. If you would pay for Netflix and you're a producer, you should probably pay for this over Netflix, because it's really just beefs up your arsenal of what you have to be creative with. And they're all royalty free, because you're paying into the site. They pay their producers that upload their sounds, and everybody walks away happy, right? You don't owe anything. This is your content. You're building the beat. So I have over 1,500 credits, right? And I can select any of these snares, any of the loops they have. But I need to go for lo-fi. So those are trap snares. I'll look for a lo-fi snare, because I need that style. And I'm just pressing the arrow button on my laptop. It helps go. It's a little quicker than selecting with the mouse. Kind of like that one. I'll like it, and then I'll download it. And then once I download it, and it tells me that it is downloaded, and it shows that little check mark, I can see it in the app. So like I said, I downloaded this app previously, but there is a process to download it. But there's a sound, and now I have it running next to Logic, and there's a copy to clipboard, or you could just grab and drag into Logic. So now there is a new, and the idea when you drag is not to drag to the same track that you've already had your sample on. Don't do that. If I drag below in this this dark gray space, it'll create a new track for me. See, drag audio files here to create instrument tracks. So that's very convenient for the artist in working quickly. And you know, it's all about placement, copying and pasting as far as this form of sampling goes. Because first, before we add any more instruments, let's see what we're working with as far as a sample, because I just went through creating the tracks and naming the tracks and all that. But now let's try to search for a sample. We'll go through the whole album. We'll get rid of all of that and start from scratch. Now, I did have an idea with one of the songs. I believe it was the third one. Now, see, if I wanted to just sample that snare, this is what people look for, these type of breaks. And those kicks right there? That's a kick sample. This is a snare sample. This is how they've really compiled those sounds in a site like Splice, because you can sample single sounds, and if I just sample those two sounds, you wouldn't be able to know where I got the drum sound from. A drum is a drum, right? There are different timbres to drums, but when it comes to sampling, if you get this detailed in sampling, no one will know, and that's a secret. But the secret's out, I guess, right? So this is a snare sound. If I can, as you can hear, it kind of cuts off, I can drag it out to get that reverb in the sample. And you kind of hear the hi-hat in there, but that's all right. We can kind of create something else. We can create false reverb from it and just actually get the initial transient. So it cuts quickly, but I can place a reverb on that sound to make it sound like it's a little bit more natural. So let's hear the kick sound. And now it comes down to EQ, compression to help bolster these sounds a little bit, and making sure that you're cutting away any dead space in the beginning, so you're actually just getting that transient. It's very tedious, but as a producer, this means all the difference in getting your sounds right. So here's a kick, right? So now we got, instead of full album output, kick. And I leave the name so I know where I got it from, and this is the snare, right? So using the naming process to stay organized is very important, because I can essentially, once I find my sample that I'll use, I can use those snares and kicks in layer or by themselves. So let's unmute it, and let's continue to search for a nice little chop. And usually what I'm listening for is, if you can see this 4/4 measure right here, that's like the measure of the grid and how often the metronome will count. Hip hop is usually in 4/4 measure, as long as most pop music, but it's just counting that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I kind of like that. So let's find the beginning of it. Let's do it. I like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, let's do that. So now that that's selected, that's the selection I want. You see how I separated it? I'm gonna click on it, Command C to copy, and on a different track, I'll go all the way to the front, and I can mute that track. I'll create one. You can create a track the long way too. I'll show you. Go select track at the top, and put a new audio track, and boom, one pops up. And since that's selected, I'll do a Command V for paste, and then see my my cursor was all the way over there. So wherever your cursor is, that is where it will be pasted. So you want to go, I'll push return and go back to the beginning, and then press Command V again. And that's where things will be pasted. So I'll mute that, kick in that snare, and let's try to get this sample exactly on into the 4/4 measure. Right now this beat is going to be at 90 BPM. That's what it's set to. But once we get the chop exactly to the start and finish point where we want it, then we can change the tempo. So let's worry about that later. And it sounds like it's almost on time. Yeah, like that's the beginning. 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like we want to put it right where it needs to be. And then we can fade in and out to make it less choppy. We can fade it ever so slightly. Go to the fade tool. Ever so slightly fade it so there isn't like a clip at the end. Ever so slightly. Yeah. ever so slightly fade. That's important. So there's no pops at the beginning or the end of the sample. And now, by me selecting this top, it already automatically, this yellow bar right here is the loop function. I can also click that, and it shows me where the loop function is. Now I can control it. How far do I want it to be? We're doing 4/4 timing, so I can go by fours. I can go 4 bars, 8, 16, and so on. So that's why it's important for things to be in time when you're sampling. You have to respect the grid, and it makes your job as a producer a lot easier when you want to copy, paste, place things in the right spot. Otherwise, you're searching, and the grid will only throw you off if things aren't in time, because the audio is not respecting the time. So, and when you're dealing with the sample, you can also use the flex tool, which is the real key to changing and time stretching. As you can see, when I click that time flex tool, and then it pops up. So like when I deselect it, there's nothing here, but when I select it, they pop up on each individual track. This is the track my sample is on, so I'll make sure that's highlighted. I'll go to polyphonic, and pretty much the concept of these different selections is that these are types of ways to flex the timing of the sample. Some of them affect the speed, some of them don't affect the speed. It only drags it stretches the sample out without affecting it. So without affecting the sonic or integrity of the sample. So I just stretched it to 8 bars. Throw the metronome, throwing that metronome on there, making sure it's in time. Now it's a little bit too dragged out. I'll leave it at 4. I'll make it quicker to 4 and then just double time it. So So now if there's a nice loop and it sounds like it's pretty much on time, now we can get into the other instruments. So now I can copy and paste the kicks into place. So, and before I do that, I'll turn off the metronome. I'll go to my kick track. You can see that's the kick track. And I'll turn on the equalizer by selecting the equalizer part. And when I play it back, you can see that's where the kick is. I'm going to peel back. I'm going to mute the main sample and look at this kick for a little bit. I'm just going to loop it. And then we'll look at it in the EQ. You can see this is where the kick frequencies are. I kind of don't want that hissy part of the kick. I'm taking out all of the high frequencies. So it's just that part of the kick. I will then turn on the compressor. They do have, I could go through all of these functions. I won't do that at this moment. I'll save that for another tutorial. But they do have settings, presets ahead of time, and I'll go to drums, and lo and behold, kick drum. Let's just start with that. I'll throw a limiter on there, make sure it doesn't peak at any point, and that's the preset. And if pretty much if this needle isn't moving, or if it's the more that it moves, the more the compressor is working. So what I'll do is raise the threshold, actually lower the threshold slightly, so it's able to pick up more of that kick. So just so the kick is more present, because it is a sample, there has been some degradation, but now I'm trying to bring some of the power of the kick back, especially for hip hop. That's important. So now you hear it a lot better, and I'll probably end up doing the same thing with the snare. So now it's present. I'm gonna unmute the sample. Now I could sample the kick and play it on my MIDI controller, but for the sake of time, I will just copy and paste these kick sounds. So let's find out what part of the beat that we feel that the kick should go. And now again, this is all artistic, but now I'm going to use the grid as my friend in this part to build a kick track. I kind of hear it right there. I'm going to move this over because it's kind of like a double kick. I'm going to do that. I like that. Then move that over. I'll just do one at a time. All I'm doing is copy and pasting. And if you want to make variations, and pretty much I'll copy that again. I'll copy that whole first half and then paste it again, because that kick is on the one. It's on that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2. So now we can hear the snare kind of in the sample, but I'll support it with this other snare. So you can hear that snare is right on this line. This is not, it's muted, but you can hear clap, clap, right? So we know where that snare is at. It's going to be on every 2, 4, 2 and a 4. So now we know where they're at, 2 and the 4. So then I'll go to the snare track, and essentially I'll do the same thing with the EQ, but the snare is going to be at a different frequency. We'll need less low end. So now I have a kick in the snare track, and we'll go into my Splice app, and now we'll look for a hi-hat. We'll type that in, search. I like that one. I'll download it. It shows the ones that need to be downloaded, have the little cloud with the download. And then I'll pull in and drag to a separate track. And now we'll work with the hi-hat. The hi-hat is a little bit more consistent of a sound. We'll just need to see where that fits. And it's really loud. Things don't have to be full blast. Like, that's the part of mixing. When it comes to the hi-hats, they don't have to be as loud as the kick or snare. So I want that to be more consistent. Less consistent. So on every one. So like 1, 2, 3, 4. And now that I have those 4, I can make my life easier. Copy, paste. and see how quick that is, as opposed to just copy and paste each one. So now that's our first chop. There's variations. So now it's about getting creative with the sample. You can leave it as is. That's okay. It's kind of boring. But you can chop the sample up further. Now that it's gridded, I can chop right on these ones, or I can make smaller chops. I can make the quarter chops, just so it's smaller. So you can see now, as I'm slicing it up, I can select these. So now you'll see on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Actually, with this one, see, it's not on that one. I'm going to undo that one and then start right there, slice right at the halfway point. So now we can get more detailed, more creative. I'll convert. Actually, I want to keep this straight as it is. That might be a great variation. I'll mute that, and I'll sample this second one that I just created, copy and drag down to a different track. Now, when you want to sample and use the sampler, you can convert to a new sampler track. It shows you that it will sample each region that you created. When you slice a sample up, it splits it to regions. That's what it's called. And the instrument we'll use is the sampler. You can title this. We can title it Kenny G Sample Chops. And then this assigns it to whatever MIDI controller you're using, but it assigns it to the C0. You can choose any key that you want. I keep it to C0, so it starts right at the root note. And the samples, there aren't this many samples. I won't need this many, but I usually just keep it till the end of the options just so they're available. And now it sends it to a sample track. And if I go to my mixer, it shows the sample track and the samplers in the input. So if we select the sampler, this is what the new upgraded sampler looks like in Logic Pro. And I will go to mapping because I'm trying to map. It mapped all the samples. Here are our samples, and you see how the rest are empty. See how they're empty? These are where I assigned the C0. That's the start of it. See how there's more control to that. So when we go to the zones, I don't want to get you guys too confused. This is a whole different tutorial in itself using the sampler. But right now, we're just going to be concerned about this mapping. And then also you can go to zones, and this shows you the zones that we're in. And you can have a lot of control with this new sampler. So I don't have my MIDI controller plugged in, but you can use the keyboard as a MIDI controller. And I'll go to Command K, and when I press Command K, this shows you that the octave that we need is C0, right? So it shows you that all of the other ones that you selected up until G8, right, those are empty. But remember, we assigned it to C0. And if I press the A, I'm controlling that as well. W. Playing with it, see how it sounds. Let's play it with the drums. I have to delete this because all it is this exact same progression of the sample, and we don't want that. We want to create something new, so I'll delete it and then I can record in. I'm gonna unmute those other tracks so I could. Here's our drum beat that we created. Right? So now if I play along, and I wasn't even recording, but I'm just messing around till I get something that sounds kind of funky, and just to create my own melody with the sample chopped up. And again, we can make smaller chops, smaller cuts, but this is for right now what the artistic angle we're going. Let's try to record something. 3, 4. So like, just did it for that 4 bars. If you can see, it kind of missed that first note because it kind of started before the loop. So when you see that happen, you can select that first note and quantize it. This is the quantizer, and it goes on a quarter note or 16th note. I'll keep it on 16 because that kind of frees up the time a little bit. But once I press that select and then press that Q, it drags it to the nearest grid line. So now you have a whole new selection, and let me quantize this a little bit more. I can zoom out, select it all. So now it's all selected, and then I quantize it into 16 notes. So now there's a loop. So along with this other one, let's copy the drums. Now, if we have 2 different zones of progressions, as you can see, that one's muted. Let's move that up. If we wanted to extend the loop to 8 bars, we have these one sample that I redid and then the initial sample. But we have the drums that are continuing. So now, as you can see, you can keep building it in time. as you see, you can always get more detailed. This obviously is not a finished product, but we haven't mixed or mastered or anything. But this is the idea of chopping samples, getting it from the vinyl itself, recording it into LogixPro X, and then building samples, slicing up samples, and then building them with Splice. Or if you have separate drum kits that you can import, all the same thing, you know, that you've downloaded from or purchased from the internet. There's so many ways to skin a cat, to say an old reference to an old a euphemism, I should say. But there's no right way to do or accomplish making a beat, as long as you develop your own style, your own sound. However you get to the end of what you want, it kind of doesn't matter, because that's what makes it an art, you know. Like, I'm not telling you this is the right way to do it. If you get into your own method, that's even better, you know, because it's all about building your own method. And as long as you're making music that you enjoy and others enjoy, there's nothing wrong with that. So until next time, please drop some questions if you want to know a little bit more. But I will drop another tutorial about the sampler in Logic, and we can go through a lot of those functions. So until next time, guys, thank you and enjoy.